Okay, so we're speaking over here about the name Yisrael and the name Yishmael, and we said that Yishmael uses its power, it uses its might, it has this connection to Hashem because God's name is in his name. And our job as the Jewish people to combat the power of Yishmael is to strengthen the power of Yisrael. And therefore, the more that we understand what it means to be Yisrael, what it means to be a Jew, and the more that we are connecting to our spiritual power and our abilities, so that itself can push away the impact and push away the powers and push away the dangers, so to speak, that Yishmael is always trying to bring to this world. So that means that we have to appreciate it. And he pointed out over here that Yaakov Avinu was originally called Yaakov, and then he won the battle against the angel, and he was called Yisrael. And Yisrael always is the higher level of existence, the higher level of spirituality, the higher level of, I don't really need the things here in this world to be able to survive and to keep moving. I need to be more connected to the higher spiritual heights to fulfill my purpose here in this world. And he says like this, he said, I was fortunate to hear from the words of Rav Shach, who was in his time, he passed away already. I think it's something like 20-something years ago. He was what we would probably call the leader of Torah Jewry in the world. He was in the yeshiva in Bnei Brak in Panovich, and he was the Rosh Yeshiva over there, and he at the same time was pretty much making all of the major decisions for Torah Jewry in Israel and throughout the world. And he was a very big person. Not physically, he was very short physically, but he was very big in the shoulders, the broad shoulders that he had. So he said something, this is Livnei Ka'arba Esrei 14 years. This is 14 years before, and he's already passed away 20-something years. So this statement was maybe said close to 40 years ago. And he said like this, the challenges of our generation have changed a lot from the challenges that were presented to the generation that was before the outbreak of World War II. He's talking about the Jewish people, that what the Jewish people were contending with historically then is not what we are contending with historically right now. Before the Second World War, before the Holocaust, there was something called the Haskalah, which was known as the Enlightenment, where unfortunately many of the youths of the Jewish people who were living in Europe, and many coming from fine, wholesome houses of Torah and mitzvahs, they got swept up in this idea of being enlightened. And the enlightenment was that you don't need Torah and you don't need mitzvahs to be a Jew. You just have to be a cultured individual. And they were convincing hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of the young Jewish teenage men and women to abandon their faith and abandon their practice of Judaism. And that was a major challenge that was going on. Even all of Germany, if you know that why they say that the Holocaust began in Germany. Germany was like the center of all of this. Germany was the enlightened Jew. These were the people that had already abandoned the faith to a great extent. Intermarriage was rampant at that time. No Shabbos, no mitzvahs, no anything that was going, culture and society and all these things. That's what mattered. And that was the main battle, the main challenge that we were contending. Many even frum children, frum teenagers and the like, they were caught up in the nets and the traps of the Haskalah of the Enlightenment. But after the war was over, the Holocaust and the dust settled, all of these apikorsim, all of these heretics who believed in this concept called being enlightened, they were gone from the world. They were it was like burned up together in the gas ship. All of that was lost. We don't find them anymore amongst the Jewish people. We don't find enlightened people. After the war was over, there were two camps. That was it. There were those that held on to their faith, and there were those that no longer believed in Hashem. And there was nothing in between. The Haskalah was like somewhere in between, trying to show that you just have to be enlightened, you have to have this. No, the people that were no longer believing in Hashem, they were angry, they were broken individuals, and they weren't keeping anything because of that, not because of Haskalah. But now he says, Nisayan Hador, the generation, the challenge of our generation, this is going back, again, almost 40 years ago, it's the challenge of Moisaros, of luxuries, of extras in this world. Hashem has given us here in the land of Israel and also in America Shefa Rav Shal such a tremendous outpouring of materialism and so many things. And Rav Shach said that the real nisayon, the real test that we have is to strengthen ourselves and not to be drawn after everything that there is in the material world, all the pleasures and all the extras and all the luxuries, in order to remain a sacred member of the Jewish people. And he explains, we see this with our own eyes. What took place in the Second World War, in the Holocaust? It was the hatred that Esav, or in our case, the hatred that Hitler and the Germans and the world, much of the world had against the Jewish people at that time, and that's why they came to destroy us. They hated us. They could not stand us. But after the war was over, so now he says that is over. The war of Esav, the war of Amalek, the war that was with them, that's gone. That's finished. And now we are contending with Yishmael. Everything shifted at that point. The Arabs who were not so much, even though that you'll know, historically, they were also involved with different things in the Holocaust as well. Hitler, Yamach Shema, had meetings with one of the main sheiks, one of the main Arab sheiks, I forget what his name was, that was around at that time, but they were not involved in the destruction, the mass murder of 6 million Jews. After the war was over, so the Arabs came back into play. And now, he writes, becomes this challenge that we have with the luxuries and the extra things in this world. What does that mean? In order for us to be able to overpower Yishmael, it's not enough that we just remain on the level of Yaakov. Yaakov, remember, there's Yaakov and there's Yisrael. Yaakov is the lower spiritual plane. Yisrael, we have to be worthy of the name of Yisrael. These are, again, this is a strong stance that he's taking over here, which is that we have to find ways to separate ourselves from the pleasures of this world. And that's how we become more Yisrael. Yisrael is the higher level. This is the more spiritual level. It's the one that we can't eat from the what is it called?
The hind quarter.
The hind quarter. We cannot eat from the hind quarter. And that we said that's the hind quarter, the thigh, that's a place of desires and all different things. And therefore Yaakov is separated from that right now in this world. He doesn't have all that. Rather, we need to strengthen ourselves in our pursuit of the wisdom of the Torah, and to hold ourselves back from indulging too much here in this world. And the more that we do that, then we're called Yisrael. We are worthy of that spiritual name. Then we're going to be able to combat the power of Yishmael. Yishmael is a very lowly nation. And when Klal Yisrael only functions in the world of Yaakov, we're also a bit in the world of lowliness. But when we elevate ourselves above this world and above the fleeting pleasures of this world, and we control ourselves in certain areas, then we go to a higher plane of existence called Yisrael. We're much more spiritual. And then our strong spirituality can overpower the spiritual inertia of Yishmael in this world. And that's really all that he's saying over here, that every person on their level, if they can do just a little bit more to cling or to rise to the name Yisrael, that's going to be one of the ways that we can come and fight the battles against the lowly nation of Yishmael here in this world.
You mentioned Esau. How does he enter the picture?
Because Esav is always indicative of the non-Jewish world that despises the Jewish people. We say that for Esav is like the prototype of the nations that rise up against us. We see that Esav despised Yaakov in the Chumash. He was out to get him all of the time. And so we know that Esav, son of Yaakov, Esav despises Yaakov, and therefore whenever we'll see a nation rise up against us, even though they're not exactly Esav, for example, Germany is known to be Amalek, not Esav, nevertheless, it's called that idea that it's their hatred of the Jewish people that's motivating them to do what they do.
He was Jewish.
Even though that Esav was Jewish, yes, correct.
Ishmael was not considered Jewish.
Well, right. No, his mother was Hagar.
Right.
She wasn't.
So Esau and Ishmael are working together, basically.
Well,
they have the same mission in life.
They have the same mission in life, which is to destroy the Jewish people. But his point over here is that we're really contending now in the world more with Ishmael than Esav.
Then towards the end, Esau forgave him and they became brotherly.
Yeah, it's a question exactly how deep that forgiveness really ran. It seems to be, the way the Torah describes it, just a momentary emotional experience that he had. But Esav continues to hate Yaakov for all generations. Okay.
And can we track